Tim, over the past couple of years, people were experimenting with AI. And today we're at the point where pretty much every corporation, every company knows that either we adapt or people are going to take over, or other companies are going to take over. Do you feel the same way?
Uh, yeah, I think there's a lot of hype in the world at the moment, a lot of pressure, a lot of FOMO around to do something.
Do you think it's hype or do you think it's evidence-based? I mean, over the past couple of months or, it's not like the crypto the crypto growth, like 15 years later, people are still skeptical. But with AI, people see real, tangible results almost immediately. And they see these very small companies that just started in like a couple of months are now being sold for hundreds of millions of
Mm.
dollars. And I don't
Yeah.
think people would pay this amount of money if it was all made up.
Yeah, I mean the reason why I sort of say hype is I've seen this before. History repeats. The rhythm is there once again, which is what I see is I see a hype divide as like 80% of organizations are using AI, but it's plug and play. And it's attached to productivity boost. And it's only a small fraction around actually proper AI systems, which is truly building it into your business models at an enterprise level. Um, the hype that I'm talking about is people do these flashy demos on NAN, they build some kind of wrapper around it. They're using Copilot where they've coded their own kind of productivity tooling. They're using chatbots. Enterprise reality, not really. Um, it's a competitive advantage probably at the moment to have, say, a workforce that is using AI for productivity. But the real shift, the real strategic moat that hasn't we just haven't got there yet purely because of I think it's because of budgets. I think it's because of talent. I think it's because people don't know how to do this at the moment is system level embedded AI, not just interfaces.
Well, I'm glad you're saying this, I mean, especially because of the recent stories we heard. This billion-dollar company that ended up being just no need to name it, just ended up being
I know who we're talking about. Yeah.
ended up being a company that was outsourcing everything to Southeast Asia. So I get that. But also your point on enterprise, because when you have a large company that's been operating for a while, you can't just say, okay, today we're using AI. There has
Mhm.
to be a massive restructuring.
Oh
And
yeah, fundamentally.
and do you think that this is why it's taking a bit more time for enterprise to adapt because they have to rethink how the entire organization works?
You've hit exactly the nail on the head. We do not have the leaders today to do this. Um, and I do draw parallels to when dot-com came about. You didn't have the leaders like where you saw the emergence of Jeff Bezos. How do I build e-commerce into my business? Because in those days, people wanted web page, not web application, to be baked into their business process and the logistics. And the same happened with mobile apps. The same's happened with cloud. The same's happened with blockchain. But the interesting sort of pattern throughout all of these is the biggest elephant in the room that no one wants to address because it's so boring is big data. Data runs through all of these things. And if you haven't sorted out the data in your business, like the lineage and the quality, and how do you do governance around it? How do people steward their data? How do people build trust in the data where internally it's believed and externally it's believed, then your integrations and your orchestration of your enterprise are going to be a complete failure. And so at the moment, what I see a lot of is I see a lot of AI strategies that are stuck in pilot purgatory because they're chasing marginal gains because they see the shiny toy, but they aren't putting it into actually what do we need to do at an operational level where I'm bleeding money internally on my OPEX. I'm losing talent because people are retiring. So I'm losing good talent, but I'm not storing it anywhere. And I'm chasing basically my margins are getting thinner and thinner and thinner. More people in the world. I've got to employ more people. I just can't cope. So so I just feel that this is why I mentioned FOMO earlier. People are just chasing the fear of missing out, but also I just need to be seen doing it to look after me. And if I can show productivity with AI, that's what I'm being asked to do at the moment. And actually, I think the biggest, boldest leaders will be the ones that go, actually, do you know what? We're not going to do that. Do it for experimentation if you want to, but we're not scaling it. What we're going to do is learn from what you're achieving from the productivity, and we're going to feed it into an integrated understanding of how it affects all workflows in the business. I'm not seeing any thinking like that at scale. I see more thinking around the 80% of people going, I can use low code, no code, LLM, and I'll put a wrapper around it. And there we go. I think I'm doing productivity.
Well, these are lots of questions to be answered by leaders
Mm.
today. Is that why Synaptix was born?
Yeah, because we've seen a gap in terms of this enterprise education just doesn't exist, and people don't actually see the value of AI in terms of that business outcome piece.
So, Tim, how does a company go from a lot of theories and a lot of trials and errors with different tools to actually build a real strategy?
Yeah, so that I mean that's a great question because I've seen some AI strategies and I don't believe them. It really comes down to sort of fundamental three problems that sort of have been identified actually um, on on another business called Templonics that I'm a co-founder of with my founder, and we bucket it down into three things, which is latent capacity. Do you understand the latent capacity issues in your business? Knowledge bleed. Do you know where you're losing knowledge, where you've got people leaving the company and not documenting stuff, and therefore it's hurting your business? And then finally, it's the bit about repeatability. If you don't have all these three things in place and you don't understand them, you can't build a strategy with AI.
Mhm. So, can you elaborate a bit on these 3 points? Because they seem like very high level, and I just
Yeah.
wanted to
So
dive a bit deeper.
so if you take how traditional companies work, really is that people sit in their jobs and they do their job, and some people might move on a lot, and some people might be in their job for like 20 years. What you're occurring there, and I'll take a good example in the healthcare industry with repeat prescription medications for chronic disease, which I've worked in. I've worked with people who have been in the jobs there like 15 or 20 in a business process, and they are only responsible for supplying medications to patients who are on a comorbidity type of drug form structure on their prescriptions, and they'll never leave it. But throughout that 20 years, they've learned about well, what's happened with changes in regulation, what's happened with data quality, what's happened with governance, what's happened with changes in systems, but it's not documented. They're probably living in a data silo. So when that person comes up to retiring, who are probably these are the people who have built the business infrastructures that are generating all the P&L, where are you storing all that information? And you could argue, well, isn't that why you hire someone else to take over? But how are you going to put 20 years into the next person who's going to take over when they've got a 2 week handover, if you're lucky? So that is a big problem in organizations that actually, if you don't have a proper information management system storing the knowledge of your staff, then it's going to cripple your business for AI. Because that goes into once your knowledge you go into your repeatable expertise. If I've got the knowledge saved, if I want AI to use that knowledge to optimize a process or to predict, I need that knowledge. I need that quality data. I need that governance around it because it's that old phrase, that old saying of garbage in, garbage out. If you know your AI is not the success of your business, it's your data. And then that final bit, which is the latent capacity, well, I employ a load of people to do a very manual task, and it's 6 people. That's if you talk to executives in the boardroom, that's an expense. That's an FTE expense that is costing me money and eating away at my margins. If I've got knowledge in my business stored, that's got good data quality and governance, if I've then got a repeatable expertise that I can make out of AI, then I can reduce my latent capacity costs on my FTE, move those members of staff to other areas of the business where I've got more complicated problems that AI can't solve. And people are just not looking at it like that problem. They're hiring. I need more people. Customer service centers are a real classic of this. I'll hire more people to address more demand on phone calls. No, that's not the answer. Where's the repeatable expertise? Where's the knowledge of common questions? Can AI do something a little bit better? And it's not a chat bot. That's just the mechanism to engage with the user. It's where is the knowledge? What's the AI trying to do to reduce that head count? And then I can redistribute staff somewhere else for the more complicated problems that customers have.
So do you think it's do you think it's also a cultural problem where these experts need to also be willing to document everything they do over time and not just trust their, people trusting them or trusting their gut, but they have to actually put it all in writing? Do you feel like there's this cultural shift involved as well that needs to happen?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things with it. Is that whenever I've done multiple digital transformations now, and the key things that stick out for me are basically there's no foundations that are being put in by executives. And the foundations being, first of all, let's evaluate what do we want our backbone of our business to be technologically? Do we want it to be a cloud backbone or do we want to be on premise? Because that affects everything in terms of costs, first of all, because as data grows, costs grow. So that's the first thing. And when you're going to put AI on top of that, it's going to get even more expensive. So you need to ask that fundamental question. What does my business look like in 10 years' time using AI? Because the data bill is going to be enormous. And then the processing bill on top of it. And then there's this other piece around which again is the boring bit that I make reference to, which is data governance. How are we getting people to understand the importance of metadata and linking their decisions of data together? No one's ever been told that your job is data quality. Your job is data stewarding in your job. They've never been told that. They had a job description, which was basically you will do this in the business, you will do that, and you'll do reporting. Nothing about manage your data, look after your data. You will be performance managed on the quality of your data. I've not seen that. And then because that doesn't exist, you can't harmonize business processes with data quality. And this is why you end up with silo problems. And then that has an impact on your orchestration of your enterprise solution. And therefore, then your KPIs are more driven by P&L profits and did you hit your numbers rather than actually because we improved through data governance and people caring about their data, we saw a reduction in cost of hiring staff, but we actually grew the business because we put it into this new area because the quality of our data was good, which the other side of the business needed to use.
Do you feel like the complexity here is that it's easy to measure sales, but it's very difficult to measure data quality improvements on an individual level?
Well, yeah, because it's an operational cost. But I think and I think this is why I say, in the C-suite at the moment is it's I have not, apart from the big techs and having worked in one of the big techs, is you only see this level of thinking as actually we need to be data-driven thinking of actually if we optimize our costs around data, we allow our business to grow that way. You go into a traditional business, and I'm sitting in a number of traditional businesses. They don't think this way. They think P&L model. They think sales. And that's generally, if you look at the S&P 500, that's generally a lot of the companies that kind of still think that way in that traditional sense, especially in manufacturing.
Tim, that was a great conversation. Thank you so much for doing this.
No, it's great, and good luck with the growth of it. It's been great to talk to you. Thank you.
Awesome.